Yeah.
And the World Bank just said that we need critical reforms to this inflation, and of course accelerate the recovery that we're talking about, the economic recovery we're talking about. From all you have said, it does appear that whatever policy or measures being put in place by government may not necessarily work.
The theoretical aspect. So what I'm saying, we need to be practical now. We need to come out. All right, as I'm still saying, I rendered my advice to one. We need to be productive. We need to make our people productive. I gave you an example to say that part of the practical thing that I have in my head is that, look, if, for example, we have a state with about 30,000 staff in the payroll, and you know that you can make do with 5,000. So why should you keep the remaining 25,000? We're not saying that sack 25,000. But in being creative, what you do is, all right, ask 25,000, go back home, stay at home, we'll be paying you salary. Without doing anything, just go and stay for 5 months. After 5 months, by rank, say for example, we say director. A director, we need you to give us 10 bags of rice in a year. Since you are at home sitting down doing nothing, we need 10 bags of rice. And so on and so forth based on the rank. So if the director is not willing to provide 10 bags of rice, then we will now go to the public. Who is willing to give us 10 bags of rice and will be paying him the salary of equivalent to that of director? I believe there will be many that will be willing to do that. So, and therefore the director will have no option after receiving 5 months free salary. We're asking you to bring only 10 bags of rice. You have to accept that. So by the time we have that, which means we are making you productive, two things will happen. It's either you are going to buy 10 bags of rice and bring to us, or you are going to farm 10 bags of rice and bring to us. In any way, we have succeeded in reducing your salary. If otherwise, we said that we are going to reduce the salaries of directors by 10 bags of rice, even as a down, I am complaining that the salary is not enough for a director. We are saying we are going to do, NLC will not allow that to happen. But if I say sit down doing nothing, just give me 10 bags of rice, which means I'm making you productive. After a year, I can increase that to 20. If you're not willing to, let me ask the general public, who is willing to give me 20 bags, I'll give you his salary. So eventually, we'll come to a level that will say that, okay, you give us the rice, the number of bags of rice equivalent to your salary, which means you are now being productive. So without productivity, we'll still be having, we like free money. There are very hardworking Nigerians. By the time you go out, go to any street in Lagos, Port Harcourt, and others, you see people working hard to earn. But come to others. You have significant number of people that don't do anything. They like free money. Give somebody 10,000 naira, he will look at it as if it's nothing. But for me, as I always say, when I look at 10,000 naira, I don't look at it. I look at what 10,000 naira will do. I'm building a house. How many blocks will I get from 10,000 naira? So by the time people feel that such kind of money is nothing, and by the time we also continue, sorry to say, politicians continue to dash money, people will continue to be lazy and people will continue to be dependent on the government.
Professor Ba, we'll come back to these critical issues later on. It seems as if there are some innovations and initiatives you have in your head which you think could be put forward to, managers of our economy and indeed Nigerians in order to see to it that we manage the inflation and then manage our country well. Let's cross over to Professor Kennifer. You've had the Prof speak about critical ways of trying to get out of the inflation, and yeah, that's true. You also had Nia Kinseju providing some solutions to that. What would you add to what they say in trying to find a solution to this inflation and making Nigerians more productive, keeping in mind that we cannot continue the way we are continuing in order to get to the promised land?
Now let's get down to business. If you look at the inflation with the food sub-basket index, hanging on 22.72, and the core index is 12.74. There is a gap of 10%. Now that gap of 10%, I'll tell you where it goes to. The actual food sub-basket index has two components. One is the processed food, and the other one is farm produce. The processed food is also part of the core inflation, because the core inflation is all inflation indices minus farm produce. So it is actually the farm produce that is dragging the country and inflation by a whole margin of 10%. So let's get down to the roots now. There are two areas, the demand side and the supply side of the farm produce. Before we get into those two, let's locate central bank and what it has done. What central bank has done is to provide the structure and the foundation for a new commercial agriculture system in Nigeria. It has been a complete transformation of our agricultural system. If you remember what it looked like in 2010, 11, 12. Now, what has happened is this. The subsistence agriculture we have known for years with antiquated technology, and people are carrying all of that. All of that have gone. With digital access to finance, they've all gone. What we have is that they transformed our commercial farmers to our subsistence farmers to commercial outgrowers, modernized, because when you look at the Anchor Borrowers Program, it's giving them hybrid seeds, all the inputs, mechanization services, all the way to extension services, fertilizer that is fit for purpose, herbicides, insecticides, and all of that, organized with anchors. We have production companies, processing companies that act as anchors. You have retail chain, but we have also exporters. Now, the export one is the one we need to pay a lot of attention to, because that will bring the foreign exchange and balance our misery on the forex area. Let's come down to the two these things. One, on the demand side of our agriculture, what we have is this. Nigeria is feeding over 300 million people when our population is 200 million and 8 million. This is because we are actually feeding the Niger Republic, the Mali, the Burkina Faso, a part of Benin, part of northern Cameroon. These people are taking our food, and there's nothing you can do about that, because they are protected by ECOWAS Treaty of free movements of primary produce without tax, and they're not even paying for this in exports with dollars. They're paying for it with naira. They're settling with naira. Now, number two in this demand side is this. 5 years ago, 1 naira was buying 3 sefa. Now, 1 naira is buying 1.2 sefa, which means that in the eyes of the Francophone countries surrounding us, our money has been devalued by over 67%. So there's no incentive for them to grow anything anymore. Buy Nigerian produce, defer it, and send them back to Nigeria 3 or 4 months later and sell it at 100% of the price. So these are some of the issues. You can't run away with those. They are not going to go away soon. But now turn to the supply side and see what else can we do, given what the insecurity situation across the 6 geopolitical zones have brought to us. One of our response has been increased mechanization, which is Anchor Borrower bringing in, which is good, which means in the limited agroecological footprint, we can still intensify and produce twice more. Then there are other things that has done, high yield, seeds and all of that, doubling and tripling our produce, our productivity. You have one ton per hectare of cotton going up to 75 tons, all that stuff. And then cassava doubling, tripling from 18 tons to 50 tons. So all of that, but then let's look critically at what else could be done. Because I'm concerned that while CBN is doing all of this and has transformed 3 million farmers to commercial farmers, we have 44 million MSMEs in this country. So how do you get access to finance to all the others? So we need to not only deal with moving money to the market, because in the end of the day, they have to be able to go to the market to get their loan for the long term. But CBN has also tried to do a lot of things to push more money into the market space so that the banks are able to lend. But we need to do more on sustainability. How do you get the state governments, the local governments to engage, and more big private sector to get in so that they can drive the program if the CBN decides to exit this program? And then that is where we connect with all the things my colleagues are saying. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria. 1,000 hectares per local government means we can bring 774,000 local hectares into production within a year. What are they going to produce it on? They can produce it on natural products that they have the greatest advantage. And the connection can now be made with NEPC. I've spoken to the CEO of NEPC. I said, make this link. Let's have export anchors so that your one product the local government can sit in. Now, you can now drive the local governments that are coming in with 1,000 to some of the export products or produce, or even cassava, whatever it is that they can produce efficiently. You can make that link. So you have a solid base of the pyramid producing for our exports. And it is not rocket science, but look at the figures. If normally between 150,000 naira to 500,000 naira is what we lend per hectare, depending on the crop. So let's take an average of 200,000 naira per hectare. Now that means that if you use 200,000 naira per hectare, one local government borrows 200 million to do 1,000 hectares. That is not much money. The whole 774 local governments will borrow 154 billion naira to do 1,000 hectares per local government. That is 774,000 hectares. That is still normal compared to what we are lending right now. But you have to use that to get them in. Now, I've spoken to so many governors about why are they not investing in agriculture. And you know what they said to me? One, that they don't want to guarantee loan, and then the farmers will run away because it's guaranteed by the state. Number two, they don't have the borrowing headroom to enable them bring the ISPO to support their borrowing from the central bank. Now, these reasons are legitimate. They are legitimate. So what I did for one of the governors is to give him a formula that shows how you can use, because every government, this 774,000 hectares, we have more than that. We have almost 1 million hectares owned by state governments that have been acquired. So what I did for one state government is to say, okay, you have 30,000 hectares that already been acquired by you, used for a variety of things. Let's get the farmers to go in there, one man, 1 hectare, one farmer, 1 hectare, so that you don't need to guarantee anybody's loan. So they will borrow under anchor borrowers, and then they have their money, and you just sit there and maybe collect rent and then give them some infrastructure. So it is so, and CBN liked the program that I drew up. So it is so easy to get states to line up, to use their assets to engage the farmers in the value chain without having to need any ISPO, without having to guarantee anybody's loan, because they are the obligor. The farmers are the obligor under that arrangement. And the CBN lends because they have the BVN, biometric verification, and they also have the satellite coordinates of those 1 hectare. So it's win-win for everybody. And then when the local government does the same or follows on that bandwagon, they are responding to export promotion drive. One product, one state. And it will be transformation in this country. This agriculture will solve the problem, but we must hit the ground running and make sure there's sustainability across the entire spectrum. So that if the CBN decides, maybe because of a new leadership or whatever, to exit this development finance, we don't come crashing down.
That's an elaborate analysis of what can be done. And from all we have said this morning, everything tilts towards agriculture, how to revamp agriculture, how to take agriculture to the next level. But from Ken Ife's explanation, CBN has done a great deal of job in terms of ensuring that we lift agriculture from where it was not to where it should be. And from all indications, agriculture has really grown, with time. Ni, you were the first to mention the issue of the subnationals being part of the package in terms of keying into the policies of federal government with respect to this issue of inflation in the country. Now, what are other formats? Ken has just given us a format, whereby a state government can engage farmers without actually being responsible for the loans they're going to, get from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, what other forms of or other approach that could be used to assure that agriculture is welcomed by state governments, who could now, take a serious part in ensuring that all local government areas in states are now part of the agricultural package that we're talking about? Because from all you have explained this morning, the issue is hinged on agriculture, because, of course, there's a surge in demand for agricultural produce, and that is why in the urban areas we have a higher inflation rate. There will be a surge. Don't also forget that our population is increasing. As Prof noted, the whole of the West African sub-region is dependent on the Nigerian food market, as it were. But again, Nigeria has a capacity to feed the whole of the West African region. In fact, it should be an incentive, for our farmers, as it were, because of course, the more the demand, you expect supply to start running after demand until you get that get to that equilibrium level. So for me, I don't see that as a challenge. What is challenging is how do we calibrate the system, to meet up with this demand. It is a good economic situation when you have high demand. It means that there is a need for higher supply, and of course, when supply meets demand, it increases wealth for whoever the stakeholders are in the environment. Now, going forward, the subnationals are so important in this chain, as it were, because by constitutional provisions, they are the owners, they are the custodians of land. In fact, what the federal government and the CBN are doing is peripheral engagements. The core of engagement should be at the level of the subnational, because the federal government does not own specific lands within the subnational space. So it's a state government that can determine the kind of land it wants and what it wants to do with it. And so to that extent, I think that I will be taking from Prof's recommendation that we should also start having farm estates, so delineated by state governments, and say, okay, in this part of my state, this is what I want to use it for, agriculture. And for this agricultural venture, I want this kind of produce, to be produced, to be farmed on this land, And of course, you give that out at concessionary level. Again, the local government comes into consideration there. We cannot run away from it. And I think there should be a strong advocacy, on what the role of the local government. If we are sitting without on a structure that lacks foundation. The local government is supposed to be a foundation. In fact, not even a local government, the world. The smaller the unit that we can engage with, geographically and demographically, the better for us. So if you have all equipments, all incentives in place, without extension workers, people with higher level of enlightenment that can engage the farmers we are talking about, we won't be able to go anywhere. And who relates with the farmers at that level? Today we are talking of less than 40,000 extension workers, engaging with how many farmers? And of course, we are saying there are still a lot of potentials farmers out there. The Anchor Brewers program has been able to give us a register of 3-point-something million farmers. I know, because we are yet to fully mechanized, we'll be using more hands in the farm, so we need more farmers, And to do that, you need people that can also, by participatory engagement, give the farmers direction, give the farmers, updates, enlightenment on contemporary modern ways of farming. Those are extension workers. And you cannot have extension workers effectively on ground without the involvement of the local government. You are posting extension workers from Abuja to my village somewhere in Ondo State. They don't know anywhere. It's like sending somebody to a strange land. Does not understand the culture, does not understand the attitude, of the people, does not even understand the history of farming in that area. So you need someone who have direct engagements, who have historical linkage, with the land, to be able to effectively engage people and, of course, encourage people to do more farming. So for me, the whole thing is not even about mechanization. If we don't have the resources to mechanize, because it's about big money, we have the people. So why don't we properly engage the people in a way that they are better informed to use modern ways of farming to produce more?
Well, thank you, Nia Akinseju, for that insight. But I think lest we dwell so much on agriculture, Professor Bauer, let's look at other aspects of inflation. It's normally generally referred to as, a situation where, fewer goods normally chase a lot of money in the market. That's primarily...
So many money, but fewer goods.
Yeah. But when we look at
as still a rider, I get your point.
I just wanted to add a little. That is talking about other factors that causes this inflation, this kind of trend. Yeah. When you look at power supply in this country, that's one great factor. When you look at the prices of, petroleum products, especially for transportation of things and goods and services, when these products have been produced, all these add up to the price at the end of the day. And there you find it going higher. We were discussing yesterday. We say, okay, there are lots of things in the market. And people say there is no money. Now, how comes that you find out today that there is inflation, which means there is no much money in the market, and there are enough goods, but still the prices are high?
Yeah, it still gets back to what I said earlier, corruption. But as a rider to let me make a comment on the comment Annie made with respect to the opportunities of demand. Really, the consumption from Mali, Niger, Chad, and others is really opportunity. It's a good thing for them to demand. For the value of our currency is lower than theirs, is also a good thing. That is what we want. In fact, that is one of the essence of devaluation of currency in order to attract people to come and buy from you. So by the time the demand is there, it means that people will be engaged to produce more. It's an incentive to the country. All that is required now is for us to see how we are going to produce more. And going back now to what you have said, what is going to these countries is not only the farm produce, but including the finished goods. If you see the consumption of what is going, the finished product that is going to is significant. So it's also good and it's an incentive. Inflation, we are saying that there is no money, products are there, and things are going up. Yes. When people get easy money, they don't mind how they spend the money. And also, as I've said earlier also, our attitude to foreign product, we need to encourage consumption of locally manufactured product. So when you relate to, again, the price of petroleum and other infrastructure, you can cumulatively put them together as a cost of production. These are the items that drive cost of production high. And normally, one of the major determinants of price in price system is the cost of production. You cannot sell below your cost of production. And naturally, when a tariff, electricity tariff is going up, a petroleum product is going up, you have no option. And also, the system that we have, we need to also understand the reality here again, that you don't expect the price of PMS to come down any soon, except until when we start producing what we can consume 100% locally. Also, the government in advance should put also policies and issues on ground to check the exploitation so that we don't have one or two private refineries and we now come to have a repeat of what is happening with cement, such that they will now have the monopoly, and at any time they will just increase the price of PMS. So, but as it is, it's natural, because when people buy dollar and keep, because the money they get is through corruption. So the price of dollar will naturally keep on increasing. And that is what you need to import some of your own PMS. You export PMS on dollar. You import PMS on dollar. The value of your currency is decreasing. You don't expect anything. There has to be increase in the PMS. That is why there has to be subsidy. Let me give you an example, a scenario. Supposing you are buying a liter at $1 and the exchange rate is 100 naira. So the person that is importing now it has to use 200 naira as a result of devaluation. Previously, when he is importing at $1, at 100 naira, he will sell at 120. But now the dollar is moving to 200 naira. So he will still use $1. So he has to get 200 naira to get $1 in order to import fuel. By the time he's bringing it here, assuming no other cost, he's bringing it at 200 naira. Do you expect him to sell at less than 200 naira? No. Naturally, the price has to go up. So, but if we say that he must sell at 100 naira, it means the government must subsidize. So also, if the exchange rate is going to 300 naira, so also the PMS must go beyond 300 or the government must subsidize. So naturally, these are the so and other ease of doing business, apart from cost of production, that needs to be checked. Ensure that we produce what we need, particularly in PMS and others. Electricity tariff will also need to be realistic, in as much as we want it to be cheap. Also, we need to be realistic. Those that are also producing or generating the electricity need to make some margin. So we need to be realistic and balance the equation. Ease of doing business. Still, again, corruption is a part of it. Again, you cannot run away from it. If you have a trailer load of onions from Maiduguri to Lagos, for instance, if the cost of transportation is 150,000 naira, so what the driver is going to spend on the road is not going to be less than 50,000 naira. That is additional cost as a result of the checkpoints that he's going to settle his way before he gets to Lagos. Without the checkpoint again, say you're banning, you are going to bring insecurity again. The cost again of insecurity is going to be much more than that. And therefore, it is better with the checkpoint. And that is included. But if we're able to check that, things will be easy. If you want to, again, get money, sorry to say, but it's a reality. Whatever that you want to get, whatever the policy is going to, you really have to buy your way out. That is the stark reality, some of these things. So if this thing is checked, whatever that we are going to do, we are going to say, if we don't fight the corruption seriously, we get realistic, we understand the data. We are discussing out of this studio on practical ways to really fight corruption. But that is not the subject of discussion now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Actually, you have laid emphasis on corruption, and it's actually, biting hard and making contributions to the inflationary pressure that we have in the country. Now, let's return to Professor Ken, whom I understand might be leaving us in a moment from now. But I'd like you to speak to some key issues before you leave. Experts have suggested periodic reconstitution of a country's inflation basket to capture the rapidly changing consumption patterns. And some experts also believe that wage control can help in cushioning the effect of inflation in the country. If that is true, is it a practicable possibility in our circumstance?
I have no objection. I have nothing against expanding the basket. But I think we probably will be avoiding the real task that we have to confront, that we have to confront, and which is, we've dealt extensively with the agriculture. So at least we now know what agriculture can do and what we can do to temper that. But we haven't dealt in greater detail what has to happen to power, and then what has to happen to fuel cost that is pushing the transportation cost. And if you remember in 2016-17, when the central bank had so much problem with macroprudential measures and capital account control measures, and consecutive drops on exchange the exchange rate and all of that, they turned to demand management by blacklisting 34 items. And that quickly brought us back to normal, because when you dealt with that, then it means that it had to push resources to deal with backward integration fallout from restricting those 34 items. And that's where you saw a lot of resources coming into the real sector and agriculture in particular, because of the impact of the backward integration agenda to deal with the exclusion of those 34 items. I think that list has to increase. That has to increase, because that is why I kept pushing my finger, pointing my finger to petroleum subsidy and petroleum product importation. I keep pushing that. Look at 112 billion last month couldn't be given to governors to increase at least their receipt by about 3 billion each, because it's gone on subsidy. And we've got to have to tackle this, because what is hemorrhaging the forex that we get. And we've got to do something. You can't have 75 licenses out there, and then you don't have another Dangote and the other guys to come in to support them. So that money could have set up 3 refineries, 3 modular refineries, money 1 month. That means on the average, 100 billion a month goes on subsidy. That means 100 billion extra money that the states would have needed to put into agriculture, to put into all other areas. That's 1.2 trillion. We can't go on like this. We just cannot go on like this. So look at both the demand and supply side, and then other structural areas that we have to do something about, and we can do something about this, without a doubt.
Thank you so much, Professor Ken Ife. We thank you so much for being part of this program this morning. We learned that you have some other engagements somewhere, so we really have to thank you very much. We hope to see you next again when something like this comes up. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We will now take another break, and when we come back, we continue our discussion on managing inflation in Nigeria. Please stay back.
The much anticipated UEFA Euro 2021 is finally here. Can Portugal defend the title they won 4 years ago as they face world champions France, Europe giants Germany, Spain, Italy, and England? Catch all the action via live transmission, in-depth studio analysis, fixtures, results, updates, and lots more on NTA, Africa's largest TV network. For sponsorship and advert placement, contact Bola on 08037044286 or Idris on 08034633644. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by NTA in partnership with Media Business Solutions, MBS Sports.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, The Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
Yeah, welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and of course we have been deliberating on issues concerning managing inflation in Nigeria. Of course, we have professionals who have been here as our guests. Ni Akinsiju is still here. Of course, Professor Ahmed Bawabelo is with us. Ni, should there be more aggressive approach to some of the measures that you have pointed out in the course of this conversation that could be put in place to ensure that we, of course, reduce the inflation to 1 digit? Because as it is now, we're talking about 17.193%, of course, the list that we have, right? So what are those measures or inputs that one could lay hands on with respect to ensuring that, of course, before the last quarter of this year, that would have reduced the inflation level to a minimum, reduced the inflation to a minimum level?
Well, I'm not too sure if we can achieve 1 digit by the end of this year, but we have walked this path before. It's not the first time. One, as Prof noted, this actually is also one of the fallouts of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And when you go into a recession, all the policy deployments that you have to undertake would naturally lead you, to what we are experiencing now, in terms of the deployment and, of course, the impact on the jurisdiction itself. We went into something near exactly like this between 2016 and 2017. Near exactly, in terms of figures, numbers, and all that. Headline inflation was 18.9% in 2017 January. Food inflation was 23%, while we have 22.39 now. So it's actually the same scenario, as it were. And the turning too is virtually the same thing. We are now seeing a turn. The hope now is that this turn, is it just a one-off thing or is it a trend? If it's a trend, we'll start seeing a continuous decline, just as we saw in 2017, when it turned from February 2017, and by March 2019, that's a high of 18.9, I think 18.7, was actually 11.3. March 2019, headline inflation had fallen to 11.3. So we're looking at, of course, a continuous decline, which would have taken the figures into the single-digit region. Where again, by May and June of that year, issues of insecurity started creeping in. By then, we were engaging that. You had COVID-19 challenges coming in. So what I'm trying to say is that we have walked that path before. It's not a desperate situation, because if we're able to manage, from that high of 23% food, 18.7 headline, to a low of food, in fact, also fell to 13.45 in March 2019, from that high of 23%. So I think we can work it appropriately. The only challenge we have now would be how to increase Forex funding so that access to Forex is enabled at a relatively cheaper rate. I don't canvass for cheap Forex. Your foreign exchange cost must be in tandem to your sourcing of foreign exchange, and of course with due consideration for local production. You don't want your foreign exchange to be so cheap, that rather than encourage local production and consumption, people would prefer imported goods, as it were, and services. So I am looking at enough relatively cheap Forex that will enable increased acquisition of raw materials. But again, going forward, we talk of importing raw materials, and in the last 2 years thereabout, there have been an upsurge in the volume of raw materials imported compared to what it was between 2016 and 2017, when inflation was controlled. Now the quantum of importation of raw materials by manufacturers is becoming higher, so which negates the policy of backward integration. Because in the medium to long term, what we need mostly is for self-sufficiency in our own raw material production, and create a connection, for instance, between our farm, between agriculture and manufacturing. Most my agricultural products are actually raw materials for manufacturing entities. So there's a need to create that strong linkage, between manufacturing and agriculture. And of course, I think the current government is doing much in terms of diversifying our infrastructural mix. Now we are seeing rail linking up with ports, and of course, critical road infrastructure. So perhaps in the next 1 or 2 years, we'll be talking of a proper transmodal transportation system. Now, when you have logistics falling, it would impact cost of production because, of course, that input, the logistic input into cost of production will also fall into. So generally what I'm trying to say essentially is I am not hopeless because we have worked, this same government have worked this path before. But what is essential is the subnationals. It's not, yes, the revenue sharing formula that we have now favors the federal. Yeah, 52%. But 48% still goes to other tiers of government. Even if there's no change yet, and I hope there will be change, but if there's no change in that formula, that 48% aspect of our national life, should be seen to be contributing something substantive to the basket. And that is why we get to know that we are living a federal system.
Oh, well, okay, thank you, Nia Kinseju. Professor Bauer, let's look at the Finance Act 2020. Do you see this, this very act as playing some role in trying to dose the tension in the financial market and bring down or manage properly for the common man on the streets to understand that at least inflation can come down to a certain level he can appreciate?
For sure. That's what I'm saying. The policies of the government has been very, very good, even before the Financial Act 2021. The government has really, really tried to have maintained the system the way it is now. But many may not appreciate that because we easily discard the impact of COVID-19 and also the impact of the insecurity. If not for the commitment of the players, that's the economic team, in trying to see that these policies are brought in order to stabilize the system, situation would have been much worse. So, but with this now, we expect to see growth in the revenue generation, the IGR. Also, we expect to see some stability in the exchange rate. I don't want to be too optimistic that it will stay for a long time and at the official rate as it is, 402, 411, depending on where it is being obtained. So, but the interest rate for sure is going to stabilize. And by the time we get to September, October, we will see a drastic drop in the inflation rate. And we'll also see drastic improvement in the availability, particularly areas that borders the common man most. The rich ones, those that are more average, at whatever price they can afford, but the common man, particularly the foodstuff, because that is when the harvesting period will come, and that is when the manifestation of whatever policies that has been put in place will also be realized. So for sure, we are going to see that that improvement is going to bring ease not only to the common man, even to the financial sector as a whole, and people that are doing business for sure.
Don't you see insecurity as being, that it may mitigate or rather hamper the attainment of this?
I am sure with the event that is unfolding now, I am sure we are going to get improvement in the system, particularly in the security system. You see, it requires commitment. Let me say, a governor, and to be specific, the governor of Adamawa State, Governor Omar Fintri, you know, he just focused his attention on security a little. And we have seen significant drop in the crime rate. And by the action of the president, some utterances, although it's controversial, some, you know, it has gingered the system. And also, I like the way the Inspector General of Police acted, you know, because the aftermath of the NSAS, I was worried that a panel has been set up to investigate certain matters, like holding the arms of the security forces. By the time you are setting panel to investigate this person has done that, it means that you are constraining the security forces. Everybody, the person that's going to give command will not be willing to give command to open fire when there's problem, because already this is what is happening. But now that they have the authority, they are asked to take action. I believe we'll see a significant change. What is it? It's just, in Adamawa said, as I told you, it's just the Security Council meeting they had, and they have the attention of the governor. He did what he could, and we have seen significant drop. It has been a long in my university. I think about 3, 4, 5 persons were kidnapped. Yeah. But there is what we call Sheila boys. You cannot enter Kekena Pep. They were everywhere. So, but because of the action they have took now, everybody is now moving freely in Adamawa State. If not for such kind of action, I wouldn't know. We would have been like Katsina and Zamfara with the kind of bandit, with the way the security problem started. So the same thing now with the kind of action that we have seen that has been taken at our. So we are going to have control. So if that has happened, you know, still in the planting season, particularly in the northern part of the country, it means people will still will still farm this year. I was still going to see the reward or the result of the farming.
All right, thank you very much. Action being taken in Adamawa could be extended to other states, you know, so they can borrow a leaf from what is happening with respect to insecurity that you're talking about.
That is exactly what Hani is saying. There is need for synchronization of policies. Whatever it is that federal government is doing, if the subnational governments are not replicating, you will not get the result. Whatever economic policy that is being taken at the national, if it's not replicated at the subnational level, you will not feel the impact. Exactly. The federal government is very far. Just like the president said, look, if you have, because you have failed to perform your responsibility, you are running to me to ask me that the security here and there. You are supposed to control what is there. You have your security vote. What are you doing with your security vote? You are supposed to support the state police. Amotekum is a good development since it has been made by law. That is what is expected to be. So the state government should provide adequate funding and ensure that they are checked. We should have that in every state. You don't need to even come.
More of those infrastructure coming up, because they have implication for ease and cost of doing business. And we need to put that into context. I am also impressed by the latest supplementary budget, taken to the National Assembly by the federal government, about 770 billion naira thereabouts has been budgeted for acquisition of military hardware. It shows government is serious, because if you also have, now there's a need for a new technological mix, in the area of military hardware, need for more drones and all that, because of the nature of insecurity that we have now. The insecurity is a major challenge. So the fact that government are taking that kind of budget to the National Assembly shows that the government is committed, knows what it's doing. I think in a long while we've never had this kind of budgetary allocation, for military acquisition of military hardware. So I think that should be done. The CBN had continually, explained its limitation using monetary policy instruments at this time. What is important now is to continue, at least in the next 2-3 months, to continue to drive the healthiness, the well-being of the structure, the productivity base, the productivity channel, consideration for power, increase in power. Thankfully, there's this strong vision on gas expansion. Year of gas now, that we are utilizing gas and all that. So all these things, when they are brought together, of course, it's not going to be one event. It's supposed to be a continuous chain of events. And we expect that at the end of the day, things would be less depressing, as it were.
Okay. Well, many thanks, Nia Kinseju, investment and financial analyst. It's a pleasure being with us this morning.
A pleasure as always. Thank you for
Professor Ahmed Bawa Bello, Professor of Accounting, Modibadama University. We thank you so much for being part of this program this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And of course, a very big thank you to you out there for being part of it. You've been, a good asset to us. We thank you so much. We hope you join us tomorrow on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Yusuf Nadabu Usman saying stay safe.
And I am Kirian Rumaya. We are live again tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Be a part of it. Thank you for watching.